And we're back and we're moving into our final segment for today where we have another interesting conversation lined up. We're talking to representatives of the Wildlife Conservation Society and getting an update on an app used to collect data on how we consume fish and also the Fish Right, Eat Right initiative. I have with me Julio Maaz, who is the Technical Coordinator for Sustainable Fisheries for WCS, and John Ramnarace, who is the Technical Assistant for Enforcement Technology for WCS. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, thank you.
So this is, I think, a follow-up conversation. We've talked a bit about Fish Right, Eat Right before, but let's just do a recap so for anybody who doesn't know about it, they can understand more.
All right, so Fish Right, Eat Right was a market-based incentivized program, and it was conceptualized by the Fisheries Department and quite a bit of NGOs like WCS, TNC, Oceana, the BTB, just to name a few of the many people who are a part of it. And it encourages responsible consumption of seafood on our part as the consumers, because we know that our consumption, our responsible consumption of seafood directly affects the fishers. And you know, whether they go out doing illegal activities or not, because they have a market for it. If we don't purchase illegal seafood, then there won't be a market, and there won't be an incentive for fishers to go out and do that kind of stuff. So yeah, this was conceptualized about 2014, 2015, and officially launched in 2016. So yeah.
What's been the uptake so far? People, you know, I know you've worked a lot with restaurants too, so they have their signage up that they're a part of the initiative and that they buy fish from legitimate sources and that are in accordance with all regulations.
Right.
But beyond the restaurants, how have you been able to spread the message of Fish Right, Eat Right?
The most difficult part has been getting the fish vendors, the middlemen, to participate in the program. What we have been doing as of late is doing a one-on-one contact with the fish vendors, and I think that we're at a point whereby they have opened their doors to us now. We have 3 major suppliers of the North that recently signed up, and they are actually contributing information to the system. And we are very happy to report that they have actually been assisting in getting us some of their historical data, because this is data that they have recorded somewhere in notebooks or ledgers.
So they have been keeping information.
Yes, they have been keeping information, and I think that one of the things that is helping is that we are being more effective in communicating with the stakeholders at large about the issues that we have around the fisheries sector, and they want to play a part in helping us better understand where we are in terms of the fish production.
Now, how do you know that the fish that people are selling at the fish markets or the fish vendors, or that the restaurants are buying or the supermarkets are acquiring, are actually sustainably caught, that they fit within what you call the Fish Right initiative? How do you know that?
So the data collection part is definitely one aspect of it. When you look at the information, when you have a large data set, you can look at discrepancies in the data set. The other thing is that we also partner with the Fisheries Department, and they do inspections at the national level. They do restaurant inspections, they do market inspections, and so that helps in terms of bringing, of creating that atmosphere that you're always being watched, and so they will try to do the right thing. But at the same time, the consumers are the ones that play a vital role. If you see a vendor posting illegal product for sale on Facebook, you can report that, and something will be done about it. If you see you go to a restaurant to buy your ceviche and you realize that, oh, I wanted shrimp, but they're telling me conch and conch is closed, you can report that. And so the consumers are the one that can play the biggest role in making sure that, in keeping everybody honest.
As well through the Fish Right, Eat Right program, again, one of the incentives that we plan to do is educational road shows. So these will be for restaurants as well as fishers, to introduce them to new fishing ways, and as well as introducing restaurants into alternative species, how to prepare alternative species, things like these, how to tell what fillet they are purchasing due to the skin patch that is on them, all of this information. So it's not all about reporting and illegal activities and stuff like that too. We also try to look at the positive and educate people more on what's going on and what it is they can do to help in their own ways.
Now, the skin patch is a very important and very smart way of being able to track what type of fish, especially if it's filleted already. What's the adherence level for that? Because clearly, if it's an illegal fish or something I shouldn't have, I'll just sell it to you without a skin patch.
Well, we would rather compliance, as it is an easier approach and softer approach. However, the enforcement, as I said, the Fisheries Department do inspections of the skin patch. However, one of the things that we will do through this program is help the fish vendors and the restaurant owners to be able to identify fish based on the skin patch and the texture, the grain per se of the flake of the fish. You can tell a lot about of a fish just looking at the meat, right? And so, but the common person out there wouldn't know that if you wouldn't explain to them, you know what, this is what a shark fillet looks like, instead of a snapper fillet. And those kind of things that you can train people to identify when they're doing their purchasing. And so the idea is to build capacity, is to educate the general public to what to look for. So we're hoping to be able to really get out there with the various stakeholders and do these types of trainings so that you're better prepared, so you're not paying $10 a pound for a snapper and you're getting a angelfish or a shark fillet, which is of cheaper quality and taste.
Which you also shouldn't be taking out anyway.
Exactly.
So you also have integrated in this the OurFish app, which is how people input. It's a self-reporting tool as to the type of fish that you're purchasing, right?
Right. Yes.
And that was rolled out almost around the same time as
last year. We actually began rolling out the application. It was actually revised to take into consideration more on our local market than initially we had. So we are rolling it out again this year. And it's a very simple, very basic application where you enter your fishers, you scan your fishers license, and then you will enter what this fish species is, how much you're purchasing, what is the purchase price. All these patterns are very important data for us to have so that we can understand what local consumption is, what the cost of seafood is to everyone, things like this for proper management of the resource.
Now, in a situation like this where people are volunteering the information, have you found people interested and consistently using it?
There's people that are interested. Obviously, one of the things that is a struggle for us is keeping that consistent interest in the application. And so what we have been doing is on a regular basis trying to give them phone calls, reminders that if they're buying the fish that they reported. However, we are trying to figure out a more long-term and sustainable process in keeping the people engaged in the submission of catch data. And so we're marrying that with the Fish Right, Eat Right certification, and so that it becomes more of an incentive in filling up the data, so that we don't have to be running around people all the time asking them for their information. However, we are getting data. It's very important and interesting data.
Who's submitting their data right now?
Right now we have restaurants, and we have about 3 fish vendors that are submitting their data.
Okay. And what are we finding out so far?
There's a shortage, or there's a limited capacity in acquiring seafood in the out districts. Districts like Corozal, Orange Walk, Cayo have been complaining a lot of not being able to supply their market demand. They have been having to purchase a lot of imported fish. And so from an issue of food security, we also have to be concerned that we are able to provide our country with a good quality source of protein.
Yeah.
So one of the other things that we've been seeing as well is that the communication between fishers countrywide and the consumers is kind of hard. So we would have restaurants who have maybe 2 or 3 fishermen that they deal with directly. However, there are many fishermen out there, 2,600 at least to be exact. And what we've been working on is another app, which is the Fish Right, Eat Right app for all end consumers, not only restaurants and so excuse me, and so on. And what it will have on it is a message board for members of the Fish Right, Eat Right program. So basically, fishers will be able to post whenever they wherever they are, what their catch is, and restaurants will be able to see this and in turn message the fisher and tell them, okay, I want that that product. So if you're in possibly say Hopkins and you have a nice haul of snapper, and I'm in San Pedro and I need snapper, I will be able to see that and be able to communicate with you and tell you, please put it on the next flight out for me. I'll pick it up, and then that way, hopefully, we can get a better distribution of our seafood as well.
No, that makes so much sense. I mean, people are fishing all along the coastline and the demands are all over. There are many times in Belize City at the restaurant you can't get fish.
Exactly.
And they just say they don't know, they can't get from their particular provider.
Right.
So this app is also, because I keep on hearing you say consumers, and while that does include people at the restaurants, the chefs who buy it, it's also your everyday families.
Exactly.
We're consumers as well. Is it also open for, if we consume a lot of fish, that I can also contribute to the app?
Yeah, definitely. We would welcome the data, any data that you would like to give if you eat a significant amount of seafood and you would like to share that data with us. You can contact us at WCS, talk to myself or Julio, and we'll get you set up. Definitely.
It's a market-based incentive, right? And so it's trying to connect fishermen and businesses, trying to open that line of communication, because when we look at the production or the consumption at a national basis, we really can't say for certain yet why there is that lack of production in the communities. However, it may very well be a lack of communication whereby the vendors and the fishermen are not talking to each other or don't have that direct line of communication. And so that is where we are seeing that the conservation and the markets can align themselves to ensure that one, we're being able to meet the local demand, but at the same time make sure that we're meeting that local demand based on responsible sourcing of the seafood.
Now, when you talk about, and I always, every time this issue comes up, I hope people are paying attention, that we are in a situation where we import fish in this country. We're not talking any fish, it's catfish coming from the north. So not only is it catfish, it's frozen and broadened in. Instead of the fresh fish we have available in the sea. So what is your hope from a conservation point? At some point, I mean, we should be, many would assume, self-sufficient when it comes to fish.
Yes.
But then we also have the conservation societies speaking of sustainable fishing and not overfishing and reducing fish stocks. Where's the balance between that we get to being self-sufficient, but also doing so in a responsible manner?
So a lot of the times, the overfishing or increase in fishing pressure, especially for exportation, leads to increase in price of fish. And so often the consumers are looking for cheaper fish, and the bass or imported fish are some cheaper alternatives. Now, what we would like to see is that we have bountiful oceans whereby we have enough production there and is being sustainably and responsibly harvested by our fishermen, that we can actually look at a affordable fish for our local consumers. Obviously, fishing responsibly also is affected by the high price for going to fish. And that's one of the things that we have to take into consideration. And as such, what we have to work with our fishermen is try to figure a way on how they can be more cost efficient in doing their fishing practices. And so we also have to look at different ways of doing business to reduce their cost of doing fishing operations. And right now, what we look at is that sometimes the cost of fish is very expensive because the vendors have to be going throughout the country, burning a lot of fuel to find fish.
Right.
However, if we can figure out a way on how to reduce that cost of operation, that might very well be passed on to the consumer, and so making it more affordable for the consumers to be able to purchase locally harvested seafood.
Yeah. What's the demand? What's the fish most in demand that you're seeing from the research you've gathered, the data you've gathered? Snapper.
Red snapper to be exact, would be the main seafood that we like.
Okay.
But it's also dependent on sometimes the supply, what's available.
Yeah.
And so, for instance, in the north, and this is what you're going to hear more in the north, the chiwa or the stone bass is what is more demanded in Corozal.
Because that's more accessible to them there.
And it's actually a cultural thing too. In Hopkins and Dangriga, there's a higher demand for groupers because it's a cultural thing. Belize City, a lot of snappers.
Yeah.
The yellowtails, the black snappers.
As well as the tourist industry.
The tourist
due to the light taste and like that of the fish, that it's more highly demanded.
What do you see as the next phase of this project? So you have Eat Right, Fish Right, Eat Right.
Yes.
And you have our OurFish app. You have a new app that you're developing, which is putting together, linking the vendors and the fishers, which definitely is a wonderful idea. But what is the next phase from this? How do you go from understanding what the consumer patterns are, getting the buy-in from the people who use the most fish to say they want fish that's been caught or harvested in the right way? Where do you go after that?
So policy is the first step. We have to take this information that we're gathering and figure out how the government can intervene to make certain policies more conducive to better sourcing, bringing some of these same fish vendors to the table to take part in the fisheries management process. We also have to look at how can we improve the business side of it. Can there be incentives given to these individuals from, let's say, the Ministry of Finance in terms of sourcing or increasing the importation taxes on seafood from outside? And so it's probably looking at policy, improving that relationship between the fish vendors and the government and the managers of the resources. But at the same time, we have to look at how to make this sustainable in the long run, not only from the fishery standpoint, but how do we keep the program going? And so that is another big challenge that we have, and we're trying to figure out how do we make this sustainable, how do we make a relationship between the fishermen and the vendors a long-term commitment, a long-term process.
Yeah. One of the things I haven't heard, which is I know used to be kind of the move when you talk about looking at being sustainable with our fish resources, we've talked about diversification, kind of adjusting everyone's palates to something different. Are we seeing that move, especially since there seems to be a lack of supply?
Yeah, so we've been trying to encourage the use of alternative species through the program, lionfish being the main one, due to the effect that it's having on the reef. And many people haven't tried it yet. So we've been encouraging that and having people try the lionfish, and for the most part, as soon as they try it, they're like, oh, where can I get more? So we're working with the fishers now to see, and some of the co-ops as well, to see how we can get a ready supply, have fishers actually go out and target lionfish. As it is right now, they're kind of doing it opportunistically. They know the effect that it's having, they see one, they're going to take it off the reef, and if it's too small, it just gets thrown in the back of the boat, and it's, or if it's large, it gets eaten, possibly by the fisher themselves. But actually having a market for the lionfish we're looking into. So we've been working. We have about 3 fishers who have agreed that they will go out and target the lionfish. And that's
lionfish is
growing.
the one fish that we are allowed to overfish
Right.
at any size.
There is no overfishing
anytime.
with the lionfish, right?
Any practice,
Yeah,
you can use scuba gear, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's very closely, if we can describe the taste, I would put it to a snapper or even a grouper.
Yeah,
The
it's
taste of
delicious,
the it's a really good fish.
Yeah.
There are several other things looking at deep sea fishing. We know of several projects ongoing with the Belize Fisheries Department through the Marine Climate Change Adaptation Program and the Turner Atoll Sustainability Association looking at deep sea fishing. And so that's another alternative source for seafood. Obviously, it has to be done within sustainable practices. We have to really understand how the stocks are out there.
Yeah.
But at the
Also has to be lucrative because it's more
Yes.
expensive to go that far.
it's more expensive. However, if done properly, it can be it can be done.
Yeah.
And so we have several fishermen that are in that business. However, the communication between them and a direct market and a consistent market is what is often challenging. And so we know that there's projects ongoing to try to make that a reality so that we don't have to be importing seafood.
So anyone can download these apps.
Yeah, the OurFish, however, will need a username and
Okay.
password because it's tailored to the user.
Okay.
So there
So
is
you
a
have to
short,
sign up.
Yeah, you have to sign up. There is a short questionnaire that we would go over just to know what species you normally purchase
Yeah.
or come in contact with. And then I would issue you a password and username.
Okay.
So you would have to get in contact with us. The Fish
Yeah.
Right, Eat Right will be available. It's already available on iOS, working on it to get it available for the Google Play Store.
Okay.
Quite possibly by the end of the week or next week. Yeah, so that one though is quite a bit more informational.
Yeah.
It will share what the concept of the Fish Right, Eat Right program is, what are the open and closed season regulations on all the species and equipment and things like that.
Does it have a reporting mechanism?
There is a reporting mechanism. If you see something happen, it can anonymously send a message. So yeah, you could snap it on your phone, send a picture along with a description. If you know anything about it, it automatically pulls a location. And then it
goes automatically to you guys.
It goes automatically to us and the Fisheries Department.
Good.
Their CCU unit. So yeah, that's in there as well. It also gives you notification of open and closed seasons too. So that's it about it in a nutshell.
So you look up Fish Right, Eat Right or OurFish.
Yes.
Those are two separate apps.
Yes.
Right.
Awesome. Now, just as a final message, because we know sometimes, and you've said it very clearly, if we don't purchase the illegally caught fish or seafood, then there's less of a market for it.
Right.
What do you tell people about how their individual purchase for their homes plays an impact in the larger problem of illegal fishing?
So everybody, and including myself, can at some point have purchased illegal product not knowing. And by understanding the regulations and understanding why they are there, we can make a positive impact in the livelihoods of thousands of Belizeans that depend on the fish industry to be able to provide for their families, but at the same time ensure that we can continue having this seafood available, whether it's conch, whether it's lobster or anything fish. Download the app, get information. When in doubt, you can always message the Wildlife Conservation Society, get in touch with us through one of the apps, or the Fisheries Department. I think they have two Facebook pages, the Managed Access Program and the Fisheries Department page. Ask questions. We have several partners out there that are very well informed in regards to the fisheries regulations and the do's and don'ts. And ask the fishermen, is this legal? Should I be buying this? I've had situations whereby a individual comes and sells 1 pound of conch, and that has 10 individuals to be able to make a pound. And when you go and buy a legally caught one, you only need three individuals to make that
So
pound.
you know they're undersized.
You know that it's undersized. You can tell automatically. And buying, so for instance, buying a small undersized product is also a challenge for whoever is cooking, because you end up with a situation where you have to do a lot of work to clean that product. And sometimes when you clean it, you end up with a lot of waste. So it's not sustainable for the environment, it's not sustainable for your pocket, and you end up with a lot of tedious work to do at home when you're cleaning this.
All right, that's a good one. People want to work less. Thank you so much for coming in and telling us about the work that you've been doing, and best of luck as well.
Thank you very much.
All right, we're going to go ahead and take that final break now, and when we come back, we'll have our wrap up, so stay tuned.